Thanks to a few of our great providers, including Self Inc., we changed people's lives. We just didn't house them, we just didn't shelter them from the cold and the snow, but we changed their lives. We gave them the chance to take advantage of opportunities and never look back. One of the most successful programs in helping me achieve this goal was Dr. Sylvester Outley's Self Inc.
I've been coming out in the last few times out here. We have been talking about some of the major ways of trying to pull life up, trying to pull ourselves up in such ways that we can have a good shot with life. We can pull ourselves up in ways that we can go on beyond being imprisoned and being on welfare and being in shelters and being broken up from our homes and stuff like that.
In 1992, soon thereafter, I was contacted by Dr. Sylvester Outley and asked to join the board of Self Incorporated. And of course, I jumped at the opportunity because I had a tremendous desire to work in this field. I spent 9 years now, 8 years as mayor and 1 year as managing director, working in this field, and so it was really very appropriate for me to join the board of Self Incorporated.
You brought yourself here. You brought yourself to the prison. You brought yourself to welfare. You brought yourself into conflict with your environment, into conflict with your family. You caused yourself to get kicked out of your family. You caused yourself to be on drugs. You caused yourself all the hardship that has come upon you is stuff that you have inflicted on yourself.
Now, I don't get Social Security, but I get welfare. They wouldn't find me a place just because I ain't have no money. So I don't see how that's my fault. The way I see it, it's the system fault. The system put me here because I ain't got no place to go.
The system got me here. It would be a falsehood. To give up on this, for me to give up on myself and not to take my medication, taking it out on the system, who am I hurting? Myself.
Hide by my lying. I can hide by drug use. I can hide by excuse making. I can hide. Where did that take your life in terms of productivity?
And what attracted me to the Self Incorporated board was two things. One was Dr. Sylvester Outley himself, who had a reputation that preceded him as someone who was genuinely concerned for people and for the homeless, and who had a real passion and really knew what he was doing, who had a different kind of a unique approach of dealing with the total person and helping the people to become self-sufficient.
But now I know if I come to Outley House and programs like this in, that it is like another rule. And I do know also that, like, if I do fall off that rule, I know how now you look for signs to get back on it. And I like to thank Dr. for giving me that chance.
If you're going to have these things that's going to bring comfort to your life, you're going to have to get up off of this lying, hiding, cheating. Being slick is our chief's tool. Being slick. We pride ourselves in being slick liars. Being slick, if you think that through, being slick is being real dumb. Because what goes around comes around. How did I come by the furniture, the taste of furniture that I have? I don't know if you believe in reincarnation or not, but I got a feeling that I lived at other periods of time, and the Victorian period is one of those periods that I relate very, very closely to in terms of feelings. And the other is the 4 BC period of Socrates, Plato. I relate very closely to that. Socrates is a very, very profound teacher in my life, and of course that comes through in the Jesus teachings. I relate very closely to that. So I think I've been around for a number of times. I'm the son of a sharecropper. My father was a sharecropper in Alief, Texas, which is close to Sugar Land, Texas. Richmond, Texas is the county seat for Fort Bend County. I was born in that area. I was born on a plantation in 1926, which means that I was born right in the face of the worst depression known to America, 1929 depression, which means then that there was a lot of slavery mentality still existing, both in the ones who have been slaves, who had not learned to exercise their independence in productive ways, and others who had not turned loose, the masters who had really not turned loose that way of thinking. For some reason that I can't explain, I never really identified with wanting to be like my father or wanting to be like anybody around me. I thought that people around me were basically slaves. They were basically people who were not permitted to be themselves, like, you know, you had this business of staying in your place, or you get whipped to death, or you get hung to a tree if you didn't stay in your place. I'm talking about back in the days when things was real. Mm-hmm. I'm 73 years old, you know, so I'm talking about back in the days when things was really real. 1926 I was born. I found myself then with my paternal grandfather being taught by my grandfather survival, and the survival was that you must learn to keep yourself in ways that you don't disturb mainline society. Mainline is my terminology, because I don't see none of this stuff that I've gone through or that I'm feeling or what have you has to do with racism or anything like that. I mean, we are all whoever we are. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to just sort of point out the fact that I had trouble with mainline society and their standards and what have you, and with being a black person, what we called a colored person back in those days. We wore the boots and the overalls, and we farmed, and we didn't get anything but a slab of fat back and a bucket of syrup and a sack of flour once a month for our pay, kind of a thing. Well, I just didn't want to be that, and I didn't want to be that from day one up. So when I got to my grandfather, Dorsey Dickens, who had an alias Pye, he was called Pye, and my grandmother was called Bay. It's Dorsey Dickens and Lucy Dickens. So Pye and Bay raised us until my mother was able to take us and bring us into Galveston from the country to Galveston, Texas, was a big city at that time. Well, I took the teaching of Pye and stuck with that teaching as a way of keeping myself out of trouble or saving my neck. And many times, had I not had that teaching, I guess I would have gotten myself into trouble. I didn't get a lot of good feelings from my pop being unable to take care of us, and his alcoholism. He was never abusive, but he just stayed away, and I felt robbed of him, and so that stuck to me. I felt that I never wanted to be like that. My grandfather had his little 10-acre farm, which made him fairly independent, but he too was on relief, and he had to work the railroad for 50 cents a day, and so he was away a lot of the time too, but he was away on terms that you could accept as good family terms. He was home enough that he was family. My pop was never home. my grandfather taught me how to think, or how to not think, maybe, as a way of staying out of trouble. So, for instance, he says, he would tell us, he told me, he says, to walk upon the front porch of a mainstream person's home could cause you to be whipped to death. So don't do that. They call that a disrespect of their homes. Go around their back, call out to them. Always obey the signs. You got the colored sign here and the white sign there. Never go where it says white. Always go where it says colored. Colored restroom, colored entrance into a restaurant. You get on a bus, you sit behind the colored line. You just watch for the color signs and always be there. 4 o'clock one morning, I heard my grandmother screaming to the top of her voice, Dorsey, don't leave me. Dorsey, don't leave me. God, don't take him. Oh, Lord, Dorsey, Dorsey, don't leave me here. God, don't take him. Don't take, what am I going to do now? Just screaming to the top. She was hysteric. I jumped up from my pallet. I slept on the floor in the next room. I jumped up from my pallet. I ran into their bedroom, and there my grandfather was struggling, trying to catch his breath, and it just was such a traumatic experience to see him there, a good man that never did anything but right. I'm trying to.
Take your time.
It
has to be painful.
Well, I'm trying to get through that one. I always have trouble getting through that. My grandfather meant more to me than any source in the world. And there I had to watch him die. And he taught me how loving God was and how God would take care of me, whatever. And I saw him die, and all of those thoughts came back to me. If God loved, God wouldn't do that. Now, grant you, I didn't have a clear understanding of God, but I thought God was very, very, very dishonest. I thought God was very cruel. I thought God was, and it wasn't long after my grandfather's death that I just quit believing. And I started to turn from all the teaching that he had taught. Those kids riding in the bus, nice buses, and throwing things, cans and sticks and bottles at us and calling us all kind of niggers and what have you. I could think back and I could, the anger started to come. So then I look at my grandpa, you know, struggling for life, and I say he never hurt anybody. And so I accused God of killing my grandfather. So you killed him. Because if God was that good, why did he kill my grandpa? That was my way of thinking. And if you're going to kill my grandpapa, I'm next. You're going to kill me. So why should I be serving somebody that's going to kill me? Why should I? So maybe you pull the wool over my grandpapa's eyes, but you ain't going to pull the wool over my eyes, God. And I began dialoguing with God. And I just asked God, I said, you know, this, why is it that you would do that to him and say, and let's just look at the black people or the colored people around. Why is it that none of them have decent jobs? Why is it none of them have decent clothing to wear? Why is it that none of them are respected by mainline society? What is going on up there, God? Who are you, God?
So you began a dialogue with God, but as an adversary.
Are you white, God? Are you white too? You gotta be white, because you don't care nothing about us black people. You don't care anything about us colored people. Just look at us. None of us have anything, and the mainline society got everything, plus the fact that they'll whip us to death if we say anything about the way things are set up. So you must be one of them. That was my reasoning. More than that, I suspect you're scared of them because you ain't doing anything about the way they are behaving around here. So you actually scared of them just like I am on here. You ain't gonna touch them. You're just gonna let them go on behaving like that. Look at they throw things at me on the school bus. So it wasn't long that I then decided that I didn't want to be in school. I didn't want to be. I didn't want to be straight. I didn't want to. So I jumped out of a school window after talking under the clothing of my female teacher, and I called her all kinds of bitches and jumped out of a window and went on. Well, everybody was shocked because I was this nice guy. Mm-hmm. But I turned totally opposite of who I was. In 1 year's time, I was delinquent. I became so totally identified with street life, mm-hmm. like shooting penny crabs and hanging with the guys in the, I'm in Galveston, Texas now. We used to hang with the guys in the alleys and shoot penny crabs, and because we needed the pennies to buy penny cigarettes with. They sold cigarettes a penny a piece, and I was a heavy smoker. I started smoking even with my grandfather. I started smoking his Prince Albert tobacco, so I had a tobacco habit of just about all my life. By age 11, I was smoking marijuana. So I picked up a habit of smoking marijuana. Now I started tripping in and out of jail because I had to get money to support myself one way or the other. So I became a penny and a thief, and a penny and a gambler, and that started to roll. By age 16, I was a confirmed street hustler, meaning that I knew the rules and rules of gambling and the rules. I was a stick-up artist. I had learned to identify with the whores, and I was already trying to pimp and stuff like that. So by age 18, I had learned what is called hijack gambling. That is, learned how to steal through gambling. I learned how to handle threes and crap hustling. I learned to shoot threes, shoot tees, shoot singles. I learned to squeeze the dice, do turn down shots, drop shots, and all of that. I learned to be a hijack gambler. In cards, I learned to knock seconds, deal basement, hot cuts, and stuff like that. I learned to swing out and look Saguna by way of the globe. These are all hijack gambling terms. Okay. By age 18, I learned that. I was a confirmed street hustler by age 18. Mm-hmm. Daddy Shang was my man. He was the star of my life, and the next important person in my life after my grandfather was Daddy Shang, who was a hijack gambler. Mm-hmm. And he's the one that taught me the ways of gambling. A little later on, I picked up the art of con, so I became a con artist, where I learned to couple con with my hijack gambling, which made me a first-class swindler at the level of a street hustler, of course. I stayed on the road at all time. I stayed on the road. I had to, because I became too hot to stay in one place I couldn't stay in one place 24 hours. So I had to keep moving, and I had to keep changing automobiles and stuff like that. Yes, much of my movement, particularly so after I became hooked on drugs. Mm-hmm. For a long time, I stayed out of drugs. I sold them, but I never used them. Mm-hmm. But in the latter part of the 40s, around 1948, I started to chip around with heroin. Mm-hmm. And in the next year or two, I was strung out on heroin. So in 1950, 51, I was absolute really strung out drug addict. When I was hustling craps, I had to have the sensitivity in my fingers so I could feel the dice, and I'd do a shake and do a turn down kill, whatever. I had to have the sensitivity in my fingers. Once I became a drug addict, I lost that sensitivity. Also, in playing cards like poker or blackjack, I had to have the ability to feel the deck of the cards. When you mark a card, this is a marker finger, and you hit a card like that and you mark it, and in an hour and a half time, you got the deck marked in the ways that you can read the upper half of the deck, you know, from ace down through the tens. And but you have to feel the blows, the blur. You hit a card, you got to leave a little knot on the side. So when the deck is setting out, I can see where there's a jack or a 10 or an ace. And if I'm dealing, when that card comes around, I knock second and hold that card and put it where I want it. I can put it here, or I can hold it and bring it to myself, or I deal basement and hold it, whatever. But I lost that kind of sensitivity in my fingers. Once I got so hot that I could not do any gambling, and couldn't do any con, I was too hot to walk the streets. I finally wind up just using so much drugs that I was forced then into becoming a booster and a till tapper. Booster is what you call retail theft today. We hit these department stores and you always pimp 3 or 4 women who knew how to walk with stuff between their legs. So my 3 or 4 or 5 women would go into a department store and they would walk out with 3 or 4 or 5 suits, and you know, you get these. You walk into the right store, one suit is $100, you know. We walk out with grosses of cigarettes, and you know that was a big seller. When you're really down, you couldn't find anything else. You boost coffee. Beyond that, you learn a better art was to till tap. You learn to hit the till. So hitting the till is also a con. You're working in pairs. But the God, those guys would kill me if they knew I was giving up this information. You're working in pairs, so that what we call the cap man would walk in and start to purchase a couple of things and come up to the cash register to pay. The beat man was unseen. He'd come in at a different time and not even associated with the cap man, but the moment the cap man started to pay, he would have the cashier then to open the cash register by giving her a bill. When she opens the cash register, he turns her attention to something else. And by the way, let me have a stick of gum or a piece of, and she turns, no, not that, right here. No, right here, ma'am. I'm right here. What's the matter? You can't see? Right here. I want this right here. Well, I'm getting her so intense, trying to find trying to get me what I want. He's left the cash register wide open, and the beat man is taking out of the cash register and rearranging the money in the cash register so that the cash register is not going to look like it's been beat while I'm holding him down. Now, I know the signal when he's ready, and I'll let the person up and finish paying for the item, and the beat man is already gone with the cash register in his pocket. That's till tapping. I never really did it in a long time. I did a year in jail, and sometimes keep me 4 or 5 months in jail before they could declare what to do with me. Other times they would pick me up and I'm right out the next day, because it was just they knew I was going to be out, because the attorney was keeping up with me, and particularly so once I became a con artist. When I sting, I'd always take him a piece. So, and he always was there, no matter where I was on the road. When I leave, I give him my itinerary. I let him know that I'm going, which routes I'm going. Now, my lawyer was always told, well, so I'm going to spend 3 days there. From there along, I'll let you know. And we did. And if I got busted anywhere along the way and I didn't have time to call him, he had enough information to know how to track me down. And say, once he got me tracked down, he would mostly always have them to just turn me loose and say, if you can't turn him loose like that, I'll be down there to get him. They turned him loose because he had a name. He was a bigger crook than I. He knew where to put the money. He had good connections in Houston, and so they didn't. Nobody went up against him. The name Divine, which is an interesting name, Divine. I made such an intense impression on the authorities between 1950 and 1955 that I had earned the reputation as an addictive, habitual criminal, and that's what they were trying me for. We called, in our time, being tried for the bitch. You're tried tried based on your character as opposed to your crime. And I had 7 counts on me. 3 of them was narcotics. One was smuggling narcotics into the United States. There was a ring of 13, well, it was 13 of us that they caught. There were many others that they didn't get. But there was 13 of us that they caught from smuggling drugs across the border, out of Laredo and into. And the other was two possessions of drugs that the state had on me. Then I had those 4 counts of felony swindles. So there were some 86 different times that I was arrested for swindling, for felonies that I can count, and some 26 different jails that I've gone through that I had repeated many times to make up the 86. And so that's the way I was in and out of jail. When I was finally down for the last bit that I did 10 years split between state and fed, the lawyer, Divine, is who saved me from the life sentence. So there's no way I could have gotten out without short of a life. I could cop for 50, but there's no way I could have got out of a license. 50 years is life. So if you don't go before a jury, you can cop for 50. Well, that's life in itself. The CC got it to be reduced to 25, and then he got, a year later, it was sort of somewhere within that time, he had it reduced to 10. I was moved out of the population and put in an isolated cell back in the back of the jail. I don't think they have that kind of space anymore in jails, because the jails are all overcrowded. But back in those days, there was always a reserved place. And they took me in the back of the jail and put me in a place all to myself to die. My habit was such a habit that I had this arm, you can probably still see after 40-some years, it was just a big abscess that all I had to do was aim to it and just squeeze drugs into it. That just...
It had become an abscess.
Yeah. When I went to jail, that habit was so gigantic that after about 3 days, I was hemorrhaging from both my nose and my rectum, laying in a jail floor, concrete floor, with a dirty, torn blanket that I was throwing off and on, trying to get past the chills and fevers. You have what they call the monkey on your back. Well, I was just at the point of death, and I remember, even though I was basically unconscious, I can remember 2 of the county doctor and a jailer came and opened the door and asked me to hold my head up. And it's caught me, I have this long processed hair, it's caught me by the hair and pulled my head up. It's a boy, and shoved a pill in my mouth and swallowed it. Well, I swallowed it. I was dead anyway. And so I figured that was the end of it. But they had given me something to cut down because that was going on constantly, 24 hours of the day. Just I was just tearing up my insides. And the next 3 or 4 days, with my determination that pill, whatever they gave me, knocked some of that off, and then I used my mind to to bring myself up. I was determined to not die. Mm-hmm. I laid everything to God. I really did escape. I used God for an absolute scapegoat after my grandfather's death. I just fussed with God, and I had a real showdown with God. And my grandfather says, "You never, ever, ever sass any member of white society, and you never, ever, ever sass God. That's blasphemy. And if you sass God, God will slap the life out of you. Don't ever do that, because God loves you, and you must love God." Here I am telling God, I said, I don't believe anything my grandfather has ever said to me. I think it's all bullshit. I think that you had the wool pulled over my grandfather's eyes. You ain't pulling that stuff over my eyes, because I'm too slick for you to do that kind of stuff. And God, let me just tell you, I don't believe in you, I ain't scared of you, and F you. I began to understand that the problem is not in God, the problem is in me. God ain't shooting no drugs. I'm shooting drugs. God ain't trying to steal for a living. I'm trying to steal for a living. And I began to talk some sense into myself. Now, I was illiterate, and I began to try and read. I had to pick up third and fourth grade books to begin trying to read and teach myself. It took me 3 years to get it, almost 4 years to get GED. But I started studying in the prisons, and I started to learn to read by reading philosophy. The system that I was so adamant against, and there's no way that you're going to claim my life. No way that you're going to reduce me to slavery. No way that you're going to. That's the system that I played myself right into, to become an absolute slave to, and I was going to have to spend the rest of my life like that. So now I want you to spell cat, Jim. Cat. Shit, Sonny, that's hard. Go on, nigga, you can spell it. Go on, you can. C. Shit, man, I can't spell no fucking cat. Well, wait a minute. Yes, you can. Go ahead. C. I guess. T. No, A and T. C. Yeah, so he struggles through that. And he goes. So they finally got to Big Jack. He said, "Jack, I want you to spell cow." So he's dealing with these simple concepts. Very. Jack looked at Sonny. Jack is this big, huge gorilla, or a man. He's a killer with his hands. And he looked at Sonny. And everybody knows he's a killer. And he's been down there for 30-some years. And he looked at Sonny. So would you ask me? Because he's an authority down there. He's a killer. He's been there for all these years. He's an authority. Nobody mess with Big Jack. Nobody with common sense. Sonny said, "I want you to spell cow." He said, "I thought that's what you say. You big shit-eating yellow son of a bitch. If you fuck with me again like that, I will get up from here and I'll tear your." And he began raising out of his seat as he's saying that. And Sonny, what's the hell wrong with you, Jack? He said, "God damn it, you asked him to spell a little old rat, and you asked him to spell a little old cat, and you want me to spell a big old cow? Nigga, I'll kill you for fucking with me like that. I'll kill you." So he had concepts all. He had his concepts all confused. So that's. Sonny said, "You big stupid motherfucker." He can talk. You have to talk their language, and he can't show fear. "You big stupid motherfucker. Ain't nobody." So if I was going to fuck with anybody, you'd make damn sure it wouldn't be you. Ain't nobody trying to mess with you, Jack. Said, "Cow is the same. It's just a 3-letter word, the same as rat." And Sonny got sort of eased back down and said, "Oh." So I thought, "You fuck with me, nigga." And I thought I had, I guess it was just a a hard place, what do you call it, a growth on my foot, and I thought it was glass or something in my foot. Mm-hmm. And I asked for a lay-in to have the convict doctor, Cat Eye, to look at my foot. And the boss says, "Catch your goddamn squad, nigga." I said, "Boss, can't a man have his foot looked at if he's hurt?" And the boss went off on that. "Oh, Captain, come over here, Captain. Here's a goddamn nigga thinks he's a man. Come over here, Captain. Captain, come over here. I heard him out of my own ears. He called himself a man. Come over here, Captain. I heard him. Come over here, Captain." He just went off on it. He went crazy. Because you don't refer to yourself a man there. You refer to yourself as an old thing. You refer to yourself as an old nigger, but you never refer to yourself as a man. And I made that mistake. Now, all I was doing, that was slang for me. Can a man have his foot looked at? I didn't even know what a man was. And he went off on that. Captain comes stumbling over that smooth mouth is one of the toughest captains in all the 13 farms of Huntsville State Penitentiary. Mm-hmm. He grew up in that. And he is known, Smooth Mouth and Batrax are the two known convict masters. Smooth came, and he was about 80 years old then, came with clicking his spurs and walking over. And he got there. "By God, boss, you said this nigga thinks he's a man." "Yes, Captain, I heard him with my own ears. This nigga thinks he's a man. He called himself a man right before me. He's big-assing me, Captain. I know he's gonna big-ass you. Just ask him. He'll tell you he's a man." "By God, nigga, you is a goddamn man, huh? You're a..." Yeah, you don't mess with the captain, so I ain't saying nothing. No. I just fell back. "Well, by God, I know you're a goddamn man, nigga, and I'm gonna tell you just what, I'm gonna show you what we do to men. By God, you get in front of me and you march your goddamn ass out to that goddamn pisser, nigga. And if you stumble on the way, you're a dead goddamn nigga. And that's what we do to men like you." He marched me out to the solitary confinement is on the fence road. He marched me out there and put me through the gate and stood me before that door of one of those pistols, about a 5x8. And he had me to pull my clothes off. And he took his foot and literally shoved me into the pistol and slammed that big iron door. And locks it. And he slid the panhole back to stick his head in. "Now, goddamn nigga, I think you in a place where you can go on and figure out yourself as a man. This is what we do to men down here. We want convicts down here. We don't want the goddamn men down here." He slammed the door back, put that panhole slide back, and there I was. 3 weeks in the pisser. The term pisser is convict terms. That's what we call solitary confinement. Okay. Pisser. I was in the pisser for 3 weeks. I went in a little better than 200 pounds. I came out weighing 160 pounds. For nothing. A little 5x8 cell, just big enough to fit me in, with a hole in the corner as your John. Mm-hmm. No, they had Johns there. They just put Johns in, so they had a toilet sitting in the corner instead of the hole. And that's all I had. And they fed me like they would count the peas, maybe 2 peas and 3 grains of rice and just a swallow of water, just enough to keep you surviving. And then they come through with a plate of smelly pork chops or smelly food, something that smells really good, and pass it through that open the panhole and ask you, "Well, by God, you want to come up here and get yourself a pork chop, nigger?" And a couple of times I made the mistake of going up there, and he stretched, "By God, you ain't been here long enough. I don't think you understand how to get a pork chop here. I don't think you understand how to be a good nigger here." and slams the door and walks on. So after a couple of times, I knew he wasn't going to give me anything. So I laid back and he opened the door. Well, by God, you want one of these steaks here? No, Captain, thank you. Well, by God, you better come on up and get one. No, Captain, thank you very much. You can't insult them. You have to be dumb. You can't insult them. No, Captain, I don't care for anything. Well, he gets the message. He's worn me down. I have better sense than to reach for it again. And now they put me in the pisser because I refer to myself as a man. Hell, I didn't even know what I was talking about. It's just slang. Why did they put me in the pisser? Well, you know, and I'm talking out like that, and finally the words begin to come in. So that's the way they think. How are you going to think? Well, I'm going to think that I don't want to be in here. So, but then while you're in here, what are you going to think about? Then I began to think. And as I began to think, it's just sort of come. You know, Captain is doing his job. It's who we call Smooth Mouth. Smooth's doing his job. He's been doing that ever since he's been running these penitentiaries. So why am I so hung up on him putting me in the pisser? That's his job. That's what he does. And I often hear him say, use the terms, I'm going to tantalize you, doctors, as long as you keep coming down here to me, and by God, I'll just keep tantalizing your goddamn asses. You ain't going to have a good time here. You stole, but when you come here, you're going to roll. I hear him say that all the time. So why am I so hung up with him putting me in the pisser? I'm talking myself out of this stuff. That's his job. What's my job? You've been reading on the concept of love. You're beginning to get a little bit of an understanding. It's what Jesus had reference to when he talks love. You're beginning to get a little bit of understanding as what Plato and Socrates was talking about it when they are using the concept, the forms and the concept of love. So you're beginning to get a little bit of feel. So why not start to use, what does that mean to you? So I began to think, love. And I had to break myself out of that traditional way of thinking that love is something you go to bed with or some kind of a feeling you have when you're going to bed. Just basically, Jesus is saying you treat people the way you want them to treat you. So I never really thought that way. So, but how in the world could I treat Smooth Mouth in the way that I would want him to treat me when he's treating me the way that he's treating me? So, and this voice comes. Don't confuse yourself with Smooth Mouth. Smooth is doing it his way, and you're trying to teach yourself to do it your way. Stick with love. I'm supposed to love Smooth Mouth for putting me in a pisser. That doesn't make a lot of sense, Jesus. I'm supposed to love Smooth Mouth when he's doing the kinds of things that he does to all of us convicts. No. But then that's when the knowledge began to come to me, as I expressed earlier. Who's being hurt by the way you're holding stuff in your mind and in your heart? You're being hurt by that, so why not forgive Smooth Mouth? He's not perfect, not by a long shot. So why not forgive him for being who he is that is hurting you in the way that he's hurting you? So what is that going to do for me? Well, it lets the pain up for you. It gives you a breath of fresh air. So I'm talking myself into this way of thinking, and finally it gelled, and I could feel it almost like a click, as the Apostle Paul said, I could feel the scales when they fell from my eyes. I could feel it almost like a click, and I could go back and forgive mainstream society for all of the kinds of things that I'm holding. You know, I forgive those kids for all the kinds of dirt that they, and all of the stones and the bottles and things and all the terminology that they were using. I could forgive God for all the things. I was holding God responsible for keeping us poor and keeping us, I just went on, in the process of forgiving it. And out of that process of forgiveness, finally just lost track on being in the pisser. And it seemed to me as if the pisser become bright light. In the darkness, I could see the light. That strength became so strong within me that I no longer was the falling out person on the turnrows who couldn't keep up with the rest of the squad. The last 18 months of those 3 years, I became top man of the farm. The last year that I was there, I was the lead row for #1 whole squad. That's the very top convict of the farm. That strength brought me to such a way that I was talked about through all the 13 units of the Huntsville Penitentiary. They circulate Sill, carrying lead row. Sill is doing this. I became the talk of the penitentiary. When I left that farm, Smoothmouth, who has no regard for any person of color, you can't even refer to yourself as a man if you got color. That morning, when the old boss called from the catwalk over us, "Oh, Sill Outley, by God, you are leaving here today. Get all your goddamn little shit and get ready to get the hell out of here." That's the boss. Chickenhead and Milk Buster and Big Six helped me to put my stuff together, and I had to move my stuff up front. So when Betty pulls, that's the wagon. When Betty pulls, I'm all ready to grab my stuff, run out and jump on Betty. I shook myself together and I ran up there. "Yes, Captain." "Well, by God, you're going to be leaving here today, huh, old nigga?" "Yes, sir, Captain." "Well, by God, just won't tell you. Made a damn good nigga here." "Thank you, Captain." You can't interact. You just have to, "Thank you, Captain." "Well, by God, guess I ain't gonna be seeing you anymore. You're the strangest goddamn nigga I ever seen in my life. By God, I bet you ain't gonna be coming back to no penitentiary. You're a strange goddamn nigga. Well, we're gonna miss you, old Sill Outley." And turned around and walked away. Little Buster says, that's so incredible. Smoothmouth has never come up to say anything to anybody leaving here. He's coming up, in a sense, wishing you well. That's his way of wishing you well, his way of respecting you.
I want to congratulate Dr. Atlee, his wonderful staff, wonderful outreach people, and everybody who works for Self Inc. Keep up the great work. A good deal of this city's future is depending on you.